So it'll be lovely to meet you all in person. And I'm delighted that we have 3 speakers with us today. Tom Winters, who's the Economic Development Officer, who will give us an update on East Devon's Innovation Fund, the application process and deadlines. Martin Staniforth, who's a sculptor and Director of Creative Beings, which is a creative hub in Owliscombe. An art historian and curator, Dr. Ella S. Mills, who specialises in contemporary art in the field of Black British histories of art and exhibitions. There'll be an opportunity for questions and answers after each speaker, and then I'll update the network on the cultural strategy at the end of the session, and we can have a general conversation. Thank you. Tom.
Thank you very much and good morning, everyone. I see in the agenda it says update on the Innovation Fund. I mean, if everyone's aware of it already, I can crack on with that. But would you like me to do sort of an introduction to the fund as well, just so everyone's aware of what it's about? Would that be helpful? Yeah, okay.
Yes, for refresh.
Brilliant. Okay, so the Innovation and Resilience Fund is essentially a grant scheme being managed by East Devon District Council. It utilises the sort of latter stages of the grant funding that we got from government in response to the pandemic. We got the money sort of after the last lockdown, and we committed to doing it to a sort of recovery focused scheme rather than a sort of survival based grant scheme, which we've been sort of managing over the last 2 years. So we've sort of had a lot of experience in doing grants over the last 2 years. In terms of the government funding that we have for this scheme, we have until the end of March of next year, so not long now, to spend that money up. That's just over £1 million. And we've got £1 million as well from our own funds, from our business rate retention scheme pilot, which we've put into this, and we have a bit more flexibility on when we spend that. So in terms of application and eligibility and things of that nature, so all the businesses have to be East Devon based. They have to be trading, they can't be insolvent or anything like that, or have any subsidy control issues and things of that nature. And it's important as well to mention that the grant scheme is project based, so a business has to have a particular transformative project that will have a transformational effect on the business. So that could, for example, be it will lead to the business diversifying, providing services or products that they don't currently provide. It could lead to an increase in employment. I'm particularly interested in sort of high wage employment because low wages have traditionally been quite prevalent here in East Devon. It could be something that makes the business carbon neutral or provides particular opportunities to those from disadvantaged backgrounds, for example. So a business can apply for up to £50,000. And if there's a collaborative bid, which would involve multiple businesses, they can apply for up to 150,000. And we're a little bit more flexible in terms of what sort of projects we'd accept as well in terms of collaborative bids. So it could be, I don't know, for example, a group of businesses on a high street that want to entice people back, or it could be organisations such as yourself that may wish to put in a bid. So that's certainly something we'd recommend looking at. But businesses can be involved in an individual bid and be involved in a collaborative bid as well, but not more than one of either, I should mention. So in terms of the application process, there are 2 stages. There's the expression of interest, which is basically an online application form you fill in. It should take about 10-15 minutes. We give a basic overview of what your project is. We then take a look at that. We make sure that it's compliant with our policy. And then if you're successful, you're invited to a full bid application, which is a sort of longer Word document where you give a bit more detail on your project. And then we take that to a panel of councillors at East Devon, and they make a final decision based on how well we've scored that application. and then the money's paid out. I say as simple as that. It's managing it's not as simple as that, but in theory, that's the process is relatively straightforward, I think. So I'm glad to say we've had businesses of varying sizes and sectors who have applied since we've been live in September, which is good to hear. And we've had a sort of good quality, good standard of quality of applications coming through as well. Some of them very innovative, coming from places like the Science Park. But we're also seeing very high scoring applications from sole traders and smaller businesses as well, who have, really good ideas to diversify into different sectors. So that's been really encouraging, that, grants have been going out to a variety of businesses over East Devon. So that's essentially the crux of it in terms of the scheme itself. So in terms of where we are at the moment, I wouldn't say we were particularly close to spending all of our funds at the moment. I think we will by March, which is the government deadline, as I mentioned. So if a particular business or group of businesses has a project they want to put forward, absolutely put an expression of interest in. There's still plenty of time. So I'd certainly encourage that. I'd also mention as well that we've contracted the Business Information Point, the BIP, to provide support services free to applicants who get to the full bid stage, so they can have a look through your application form and give you some advice on how to go about filling in your application form. So for those who are new to sort of grant schemes of a more sort of competitive nature, then that service is available too. So obviously happy to answer any questions you might have. There's a great website we've got which has all the details on and videos and things like that. It's eastdevon.gov.uk/IRF. I'm sure I can send a link after this session as well. But yeah, happy to answer any questions anyone has about the scheme. Thank you very much. And sorry, I was just seeing on the chat, that's where you apply as well on that website. But again, I'll happy to send a link later on.
Thanks so much, Tom. Has anyone looked at the application process or has any intention to apply?
I think Sarah's raising her hand. Sarah, do you want to ask a question?
Yeah, thanks. I had a couple of questions. Tom, I was curious to know of the bids that have come in so far, if there is any particular cultural aspects that would have sort of relevance to this group. And for future bids, I appreciate there's the opportunity through this group to sort of think about ways that we could bid for this. But are there opportunities where there might be businesses who are interested in doing this work, and actually a collaboration with a cultural provider could have an opportunity to take it into a different direction? How can we perhaps broker some of those conversations?
Okay, so in regards to your first question, we haven't been seeing as many applications coming through from the sort of arts and cultural sector as we'd hoped. What I didn't mention earlier is that in the scoring process, there are certain sectors which get sort of bonus points, and there are particular sectors that we want to encourage. And what we call the creative industries is within that. So that would encompass businesses within this group, for example. So again, I would strongly encourage businesses with an idea to put an application in, because they would score more highly potentially. In regards to your second question, what we say for collaborative bids is you can have organisations which are based outside of East Devon be involved, as long as it doesn't exceed 50%. So if there was a sort of national organisation or regional organisation, for example, that you wanted to collaborate with, then absolutely they could be a part of that collaborative bid. What we do say though is that all of the money awarded has to be utilised in East Devon. So if that's goods and services, being produced or provided or whatever, then that has to be done within East Devon. So that does give a little bit of flexibility there.
Anne, do you have a question?
Yeah, I read all the guidance. I started to do the expression of interest, but I went into the full document as well. And I just don't think this is suitable for purpose for our sorts of organisations. It doesn't really fit arts, culture and heritage, in particular heritage. And I wondered if that, I realised that this first million is government driven, comes straight from government, but is there any chance that you can rethink the second amount of money that will be available for the grant to have a grant floor that isn't as high as 2,500? Because if you have already got, in our case, 720 of match funding, and the total amount's going to come to about 2,800, you're not going to make the 2,500 funding request. I think that you should have a much, a 500, at the moment I'm bidding for a green grant from Southwest Museums, and their starting point for this green grant is £500 up to 3,000. And I think for our sort of organisations, it would be great to have a separate fund that you could give so much to so many people. You know, if you had sort of an £80,000 fund, you would be surprised how many organisations like, I'm sorry, I didn't say I'm Sidmouth Museum, but how you could help us, and we would be really innovative and bring tourism to East Devon.
Yeah, okay. I should say, first of all, in regards to the application form, there aren't sort of specific questions in there about arts and culture, as you've probably noticed, because what we've tried to do is sort of not limit this scheme to particular sectors, but to enable businesses in any sector to apply, which is why we've had to keep the application form sort of quite general and quite flexible in terms of the questions we ask, because we know that we're going to have some applications from smaller businesses that want to put some panels up, and other applications from businesses which are trying to develop carbon capture machinery, for example. So, you know, we've got that massive sort of variation there. So that's why we try to keep the form quite general, which is probably why you've noticed that particular questions on your sector aren't in there. In regards to the grant amounts, there is a minimum of 2,500, as you mentioned. That's because we're trying to support some of the larger, more transformational and innovative projects which businesses have. And as well, if we sort of kept it to smaller limits, I don't think we'd necessarily have the resources to sort of manage those sorts of applications. That's why we're trying to sort of promote bigger ones, particularly collaborative bids with, you know, various businesses in, so that we can try and, you know, keep it to a small number of larger collaborative bids, so we can sort of get that money spent by March, as you mentioned. But as I say, we are getting quite a few applications from smaller businesses, from smaller funding requests as well, which is encouraging. But yeah, again, I would say that we are intentionally seeking those collaborative bids.
Can I just say on that, but you keep saying businesses, and whilst museums, art galleries, etc. are, we're mostly charities, but we are businesses. What we're selling is tourism. We're not selling products.
Yeah.
We can put on exhibitions that can attract a lot of tourists, which will spend in the town, but it's very much a business orientated grant application. And if you thought about just having the next time having a part of it being a smaller fund, which isn't difficult to manage, you would help the heritage side, culture and heritage side in East Devon so much. And it would make a difference to the towns we're in. And I really would like the council to consider that, because have you had anything, any grant application in from a charity that is running a museum or a commercial art gallery, etc., and it's at the bottom end of your grant amount. I mean,
yes.
yeah, go on, sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say, forgive me, charities, social enterprises, etc. are eligible to apply. I use the word business because that is the majority of the applicants we're getting through, but absolutely, we have received applications from charities and social enterprises and from town councils as well. Town councils are allowed to apply, but only as a part of a collaborative bid. So we are certainly getting those through. As I mentioned, it isn't as prevalent for those within the arts and cultural sector as we'd liked, but again, there's no sort of deterrent there in terms of the policy. Yeah, so again, we would encourage that. In terms of obviously smaller grant schemes, as you mentioned, we are sort of limited to a degree on what we can do, because as I mentioned, this is government funding, but and we have a limited amount of time to spend it. But absolutely, I would certainly encourage you to promote to the council moving forward for future schemes. Then that would be absolutely fine. But for this particular scheme, yeah, we have to keep it sort of, as I mentioned, quite focused. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
A point taken, and the only bit of good news I can give is that the culture strategy, which I'll come on to talk about later, has a line in it in how the council does approach funding for the district in terms of culture. So it has that information. At the moment, it's not held within the council, so there is a bit of a gap. But as Tom's sort of saying, that please don't be deterred. And I think what we would hope perhaps is if there was a collaborative bid across multiple museums in the district. But we can perhaps have a separate conversation after. We could drill down a little bit into that. John?
Thank you, Tom, for that. And going to Anne's issues, I mean, what you mentioned in your contribution, Tom, the dreaded phrase creative industries. And I think at some time or other, we are in the forum going to have a serious discussion about what constitutes the creative industry. Those of you who know the background to the endless debates about the creative industries over many decades will know that lots of people wouldn't go anywhere near something called a creative industry, because they think it's just another means of the commodification of the arts, usually in order to make a profit out of it. And quite clearly, as Anne has alluded, there are many organisations that are driven by aesthetics and education rather than profit. So at some point or other, we are going to have a serious discussion about how we feel about the whole notion of the creative industry in our society, and come to some kind of idea about how we're going to sort out things like funding for it. Because, as Anne says, a lot of the criteria that's established doesn't actually fit the kind of things that lots of people who are involved in this forum do. So I'll just keep that in mind for future.
Thanks, John. And thanks, Tom. I think it's, yeah, as you say, it's something that we will and can address in the future network meetings. I would just like to now move on to Martin Staniforth, who, as I mentioned, is the Director of Creative Beings, which is a CIC. It'd be really interesting to hear his organisation's activity during the pandemic and future plans. Thanks, Martin.
Thank you very much. Can I have screen sharing rights, please? Perfect, thank you very much. Here we go. So, Creative Beings then. So we are a social enterprise based 2 miles outside of Homerton, a CIC, and we kind of describe ourselves as a place to help cultivate creative practices in order to promote well-being. So we have various things that we can share. Move that down a bit so I can see the screen. Sorry. Yes, so we have various assets that we can kind of share. So we have a studio, which is a nice kind of light open space to work in. Indeed, later on today, we have a workshop for 20 carers from Honiton doing wreath making. We also have nearby an agroforest that we started planting out 3 years ago. And that's a great place where kind of fieldwork operations can take place. We have run a whole series of kind of courses and events over the years. So sculpture, textiles, felting, foraging and preserving, painting, mark making using nature. We've also had pop-up events, so musicians, contemporary dancers performing, etc. And the idea is that these courses and events make a little bit of a profit that then goes into supporting other events that are kind of givebacks. So we have run workshops, kind of creative workshops, both here in Orliscombe, but also at client sites. So this is doing some stuff with Headway in Exeter. We've run workshops with United Response, Rock Creative, both in Honiton and down in Torquay. And stuff with Headway in Exeter as well. So a whole variety of kind of give back events where we kind of take creativity to underserved groups and help to go and build connections there. Last year had a particularly kind of special project, which was called, so this is kind of with my artist hat on, my sculptor hat on, kind of all inspired by the father of the Royal Counts Hotel. We ran a whole bunch of kind of creative wellbeing workshops exploring the theme of hope with various charities. So I guess inspired by the fire, I'm thinking that the sun will rise tomorrow. There is always a new day. So how do we acknowledge drawbacks, setbacks, but kind of move on with a spirit of hope? So creative wellbeing workshops, that led to the creation of a tree, the Tree of Hope, that has been on tour to the cathedral, the RDNE, it's currently in Exeter University, and thousands of people have written up leaves with messages of hope to make a kind of a co-created community sculpture. In addition, we have also supported, explored the theme of hope through dance. We've composed or worked with a young composer to create a dance track. And that was shared with dance organisations across the Southwest, including East Devon Dance Academy from Honiton. And we had 20 performances inside the cathedral. And to get to that stage, these groups were given the services of a professional choreographer. Some groups chose not to perform in public. They just wanted to kind of explore the hope personally without having the kind of anxiety trigger of a public performance. And that was just lovely that people could enjoy it as they saw fit. So what is coming up for the next year? We have, a whole range of things. So we are going to have a tree hub event next year where we will be giving away trees provided by Devon Wildlife Trust. We will be doing an open gardens event for hospice care. We will have a whole bunch of kind of creative courses to appeal to different kinds of people. That's probably my 5 minutes. I've probably said more than enough there. Thank you very much. Oh, no, one more thing I'll say also is that we have, we're kind of exploring the idea of kind of creativity on prescription. So we've created a flyer, which we kind of shared with the GP surgery initially, kind of just kind of setting up that perhaps we could experiment with some kind of like drop-in day or a half day a month or every Friday, or we're not really quite sure exactly where it will go, but basically we open up the studio in the agroforest and run kind of low-level creative intervention events where people can come and just share, have a go at making something without judgment and have a chance to kind of go and build and connect. And that may well fit into the sort of the mental health on prescription type plan. So that's just an idea that it's not concrete yet. And if anyone wants to kind of reach out and help us build that or something different, we are all up for partnerships, experimentation. Everything we do seems to be like a one-off, and we quite like that. Thank you. That really is the end.
Thank you, Martin. Wendy's giving a clap. Ella.
Hi, Martin. I don't have a question for you. I just wanted to say that I wasn't aware of any of that work that you were doing, and it just sounds so great. So I just wanted to say that it sounds really, really interesting and thoughtful. And I really love this idea you've got of the GP thing that you mentioned at the end as well. So thanks for sharing your work with us.
Thank you.
It's a really interesting model, how your organisation has been set up, Martin. How are you coping with the sort of social distancing in your workshops and with the pandemic conditions?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is the last 2 years have been a nightmare. So we have set up so many courses. I guess a downside of everything being a bit of a one-off and being bespoke and being experimental is that there is a lot of admin in encouraging people to come along and have a go, because we really like kind of encouraging new people to try things rather than just having the same old core coming back time and time again. And so yeah, so a lot of admin in setting up, a lot of encouragement in setting things up, and then it's just a pain in the backside when you have to kind of go and cancel or postpone for a year or so. So, but I mean, we smile and we just carry and we carry on. But I mean, I think, yeah, so we had a sculpture course there, about 3 weeks ago, and we had 12 people in the studio. The log burner's on all day, the windows are open. We let people know that they need to be personally responsible. It's all been fine. Touch wood, we've had no incidents here as yet.
Brilliant. Any immediate questions, or we can have another chat at the end of the speakers session?
Michael's got a hand up.
Michael,
you're on mute.
Yeah, not now, hopefully. First of all, my apologies for being late, but had a few problems with one or two of our members. I'm Treasurer for Equity for Devon and Cornwall, and if there's anything you think that the theatre can put to you and help, do ask. I can't always promise we'll find someone, but there's normally someone somewhere who says, oh, I could come and do that. You know, take a workshop on acting or singing or whatever.
I mean, Michael, thank you so much. And honestly, we are all ears and we would love to explore. So, I mean, last year we did have, through the Villages in Action scheme, we did have some pop-up theatre took place in the garden in summertime.
They're wonderful.
We had a performance poet came and he ran some creative writing workshops initially online, and then in the summertime we had a whole day of creative writing inspired by trees, and we were encouraged to form a relationship with one tree throughout the day and do some writing with him. So yeah, we are, if you know some group who would like to come and have a reach out to us and discuss, please pass on our details. We'd love that.
I'll think of one or two and I'll get in touch.
Thank you, Michael.
thank you. Ella, would you like to present?
Hi, sorry, I've got a bit of a frog in my throat this morning, so I'm really, really sorry. Straight away. I'll keep having to clear my throat. Hello, everyone. Good morning. So as the decolonising champion, I thought I would spend my time this morning describing how I think about the word decolonisation in the hope that that's helpful for other people, either if they're not sure about the word that we hear a lot, or just helpful to know where kind of I'm coming from in the work that I do. I think that decolonisation is a word that can be misused and misleading and overused, I think, in recent years. I mean, we all, think about decolonisation in that kind of very physical, historical kind of geographical way. You think about the British Empire and the colonisers, the European colonisers, and you think about decolonisation and that meaning, the independence and the freedom of place, the kind of withdrawal of people of power and rule from colonial rule, by the places it's colonised. So, but, how do we think about that? How do we translate that into kind of conceptual thinking about decolonisation? How do we decolonise a museum or decolonise a curriculum? And it's not a quick and final thing, a project that's got an end point. for example, with the museum, you know, just by adding a kind of few things to your programming, or maybe highlighting some of the objects in your collection, you know, it's kind of much more nuanced and kind of complicated than that. Keele University have done some really great work on decolonisation, and I'm just going to read a really tiny quote. I was going to share some stuff, but I couldn't figure out how to hide my notes at the same time as sharing my screen, so I'm just going to read it out. It's very short, and I can send it to people if it's helpful, and the link to the whole Keele University. It's really very helpful. So decolonisation not only refers to the complete removal of the domination of external forces within a geographical space, but it also refers to decolonisation of the mind from the colonizers' ideas that made the colonized seem inferior. So that's what I really want to, you know, pick up on, is that the kind of decolonisation of the mind, and that really decolonisation for me and for lots of people is a mindset. It's kind of shifting power structures and hierarchies and narratives that all kind of build up to how we understand the world, how we think about the world, how we think about people and places and culture. So decolonisation, the kind of one of the part of the project of decolonisation is identifying those kind of systems, those colonial systems, colonial structures and relationships and sort of hierarchies of knowledge and learning. And then we work to challenge those systems and make space for other systems, make space for other ways of thinking and other knowledges and other stories. And I met with a really close friend who I haven't seen for a really long time. She doesn't work in my field at all. And she asked me recently, I saw her very recently, she said, well, isn't decolonisation just deleting history? Aren't you just taking stories away? And I said, well, actually, it's the opposite. That actually, in fact, it's adding to the stories, and it's adding knowledge and learning and experience. There's a really great art historian called Jenny Tennant Jackson, and she talks about unfolding arts histories. And I think that's a really great way to think through the act of decolonising. So I've made my little prop. So if we think about sort of history, you know, this is our line of history. So if we think about it as a kind of concertina, so we're literally kind of thinking through the act of decolonising as unfolding those histories, you know. So we've got the kind of dominant line of history and the dominant stories and the dominant narratives, and all of these other kind of stories and learning and knowledges or have been hidden away. They're already there, you know, they already exist, but we're just adding them, unfolding them and adding them to the dominant histories. So I think that's just a really kind of helpful and useful way to think about decolonising, and how we might think of it as a way to not undo the history that's already there, or not take anything away or delete anything, but actually it's the opposite of that, and we're unfolding knowledge and learning. So that's where I'm going to stop, I think.
Thank you so much, Ella. I realised that I should have introduced you very much in your champion role, so everyone understands the context within which you're speaking. Sorry. So Ella is our decolonisation champion. As you know, the way that the forum's been set up and the network's been set up is that we have champions across different disciplines. We've got one for learning and engagement, one for craft, and Ella, in her specialism, is going to be our decolonisation champion. And I think what we hope is that museums and galleries who are navigating these complex issues can have a direct conversation with Ella, have access to that. And as at THG, we're very much going through a learning process, and we're just delighted to have Ella's expertise on hand.
Thanks, Ruth.
Any questions? John.
Well, observations. Thank you, Ella. Sounds inspiring. People may know that there is currently, Channel 4 currently are doing a 2-program series on memories of empire. which is, I've seen the first one, and it's very interesting. It raises lots of important questions, exactly the kind of stuff that you've been talking about. Yeah. And of course, listening to you, I was reminded very much of Steve McQueen's series that he did recently on BBC One, Small Acts. If people have not seen that, you jolly well should, because it's excellent stuff, an interesting variety of telling different stories. We've got the work, of course, of David Osagosa at the moment. He's doing lots of stuff about the same kind of thing. So lots of interesting stuff. And one of the things that you were talking about, the unveiling different stories, but also changing mindsets. One of the things that still stay constantly is that we all live in a society that still gives civic awards to people with the name British Empire in it, which is absolutely mind-boggling that here we are in the 21st century and we're still saying to people, you're a member of the British Empire, have a prize. So that's just the kind of thing that we need to actually address. So that's great. Thank you very much, Ella.
Thanks, John. Thanks. What's that programme on Channel 4 that you just mentioned?
I can't remember the exact title, but it's something like Memories of Empire.
Thank you.
But it's quite good, interesting stuff. Lots of archive footage in it as well, which is good.
Oh, I love some archive footage.
Matthew, did I see you raise your hand? Sorry, no. It might be just worth mentioning, Ella, before we move on, just about the work that you're doing with the university and Ingrid.
Sure. Do you want me to talk about that? Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how long ago it was now, but when we first started this project, but I commissioned, so I have started a curatorial practice called Talking on Corners. I've worked with a lot of Black British artists for a long time now, and a few years ago, I commissioned the artist Ingrid Pollard, which some of you may know, to make some new work. And we've got it's snowballed into this multi-faceted, multi-site, multi-level project. We've partnered with the Thelma Hulbert Gallery, who have been wonderful, and Ingrid's going to have a solo exhibition there. And we've partnered with Arts and Culture at the University of Exeter, who are helping us in lots of ways, but also with a kind of speaker series that we're doing. We've also partnered with Libraries Unlimited, and we're hoping to use their library buses to get Ingrid's work out into their 360 something of other communities all over Devon, and try and reach communities and people that don't ordinarily, have the opportunity perhaps to go and see art in galleries. And we've partnered with the Devon and Exeter Institution in Exeter as well, which Ingrid loves going in there. So a lot of her research has been based on there. So the commission, I really wanted to commission Ingrid with a very broad spectrum. A lot of the time Black artists are specifically kind of commissioned during Black History Month, or kind of on an anniversary of the abolition of slavery or something. And it's often quite restricted and not that well paid. So I really wanted to just say to Ingrid, you can come to Devon and you can make whatever you want. And we've got some really good programming lined up, lots of different kind of levels of entry point for people, lots of different audiences. We really wanted lots of different kind of levels of engagement with her work. And Ingrid's really great. She's going to be doing, coming to do a talk and workshop and stuff. She really likes workshops and working with people, so I hope that you would get to meet her. So that's in August to October next year.
Excellent.
Brilliant, thanks, Ella. And I think I mentioned in the last forum that attached to that project, this is why it's quite relevant for the network, is that we're going for funding to be working with the Inclusion Agency to give us some training, staff training, and also counsellor training. And we'd like to, funding permitting, share that opportunity with the network. Okie dokie, I think I'll just quickly go on to talk about the strategy, and then we'll have a roundup at the end, unless anyone would like to share any thoughts now. No? Brilliant. Yes, I'm delighted to share some news. It's been an interesting process launching ACED. during the pandemic. And I think it's evolving, and we're learning as we go about what's needed, how we should set it up, how it functions. You know, John, as you were saying, what language we use to just describe certain things. And one thing I just need to clarify is what's the ACED network and what's the ACED forum. So the ACED network, which you are all part of, is a membership network, and that feeds the ACED forum, which is got membership from councillors, and everybody is allowed in each one. But we just wanted to have the network in addition to the forum, so that it's very much driven by the members, not necessarily East Devon District Council or THD. Is driven by you, and it's for you. So that's just the distinction. But it is a really exciting time for culture in East Devon. In the new council plan, promoting culture and community are priority 1, alongside a stronger commitment to and offers in art and leisure through the development of a culture strategy. And I'm delighted to share the news that we've just completed the brief for a 10-year strategy, which will work across multiple public, community, statutory and non-statutory partners. The aim is to consolidate significant recent achievements and maximise culture's contribution to East Devon's future wellbeing, wealth and sustainability. So the ACE network, which informs the ACE forum, will be the primary consultative tool for the appointed consultants. So that they'll be coming to these forums, they'll be talking to you directly as they gain information and intel and knowledge about the cultural ecology of East Devon. So the tender brief will be live in the next couple of weeks, and we hope to actually have the document by May 2022. I just thought I'd share a summary of the aims of the strategy. So it's to build and secure place-based strategic partnerships and local community ownership, reflect the need of people who live and work in the district, provide a compelling and robust framework to attract future investment from public, private, community and social enterprise sectors, including national investment sources such as DCMS, Ministry of Housing, Communities, Local Government, Arts Council and the National Lottery. Guide a sustainable, inclusive development of the area that fits to meet global challenges of climate and ecological breakdown and growing inequalities. What I'm most excited about, it's going to be great to have the strategy, but it's the process that the consultants will have to go through to deliver that. It's going to be an enormous mapping exercise because we don't have a database of the cultural organisations in East Devon. We don't have audience profiles, so we're starting from scratch. And it's absolutely brilliant that this generous funding has been released to get this document together. So in the process, we hope to develop effective partnerships, map the area's current assets and infrastructure, inclusively engage East Devon's communities, collaboratively develop visions, goals, priorities and objectives that are both ambitious and achievable. So as I say, in the next 2 weeks, the tender will be live, or the brief of the tender will be live. We're going to be supporting it because it has to go through a procurement portal, through marketing, and through your networks. If you know of consultants that you think would be a really good fit for East Devon, please do share it. And before we go on to questions about the strategy, I just wanted to share a little bit of news, and it resonates a bit, John, with what you were saying about the creative industries. So as I'm sure you're aware, that the government are releasing lots of funds for post-pandemic recovery, of which the cultural strategy money has come from. But there is also quite quickly there also has been another pot released to support generating more visitors to come to East Devon, and it's completely optional, but there is going to be a marketing campaign for which you can use a toolkit to get visitors into your premises, to buy tickets, to buy products. And it was shared last night in council chambers that this is called #EastDevonly. So if you see that everywhere, that's the context of it. And we'll be sharing in the newsletter afterwards how you can access that resource. So cynically, obviously, it is just a marketing campaign, but it is very much about pulling together, getting us through the Christmas period, getting back visitor confidence, and what we hope that through an overarching tourism strategy and visibility that will support East Devon widely, that culture will be a really strong voice in that. So as we move forward, we'll have the branding, we'll have the culture strategy, and then we'll have this new tourism strategy as well. So East Devon's really, really ambitious at the moment and working at pace. And as I say, your voice within this forum is absolutely vital. So I think we now have 10 minutes, but I'm sure we can overrun just for general conversations and questions. John.
Yeah, if I could take a bit of time, Ruth. Some people will know that since this year, since January, I've been having a weekly column in the XMAS Journal, and I'm aware of the fact that not everybody gets to see XMAS Journal in all its glory every week. But this column has been attached to my community education project, which has been going on for a while, and some people know about that and involved in it. What I've decided to do, I mean, and lots of people, I'm glad to say that I have not been writing every week in the journal, doing a few things, but what I've tried to do is to get other people to write about what they do and the contribution that they make to the local community, and particularly the educational aspects of what they do. So all kinds of people have already contributed to that column, the XMAS Journal, including Cliff, who sat here this morning. What I've decided to do, and I've already mentioned this, I've already discussed this a little bit with Fiona, is that I think from now onward, I'd like to orientate this weekly column to ACED activities and people. So I'm offering an invitation for anybody who is a member of the forum, anybody who's in the network, to contact me because they're bursting to write a column, 650 words, which is demanding in terms of keeping it down to that, 650 words on whatever aspect of their current practice or general issues, the kind of things that Ella's raised this morning, would like to write to go into the XMAS Journal, which is, comes out every Wednesday. So that's my aim. It might fall flat on its face, but hopefully it won't. I hope there'll be enough people within the network and the forum who will want to say, yes, I want to write something about what I'm doing and the important aspects of that and how that can contribute to a better society for everybody in East Devon. So hopefully Fiona can put my contact details into the information that comes out after this meeting. I'd be very pleased to hear from anybody. Thank you.
Yes, I will do, John.
Thanks.
Any further questions, thoughts on any of the presentations, from the funding to the case studies to the strategy, or just generally on how the network is operating? Any thoughts, advice, suggestions?
Can I don't know if Martin would mind or not, but about sending your little PowerPoint to us so we could just keep up with some of those things that you were doing, because I couldn't keep up with all the things that were on it. So it would be really great if you wouldn't mind, just for information purposes. I don't know if you would mind that. I
mean, I just had shared a few screen grabs then, but yeah, I can put something together and send that over to you. Yeah, no worries.
Thank you, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
Wendy?
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry, I wondered if you could send us a breakdown of that strategy. There was so much information in there.
Yes.
I can't keep up with this. That would be really great, just to cogitate.
Of course. So it will go onto the Southwest portal in 2 weeks. And so when it's live there, I can share the document, no problem at all.
Brilliant. And what sort of consultants are you looking for? You say the word consultant, and I'm like, what does that mean?
It's what's great actually about the way that we've written it. So we spoke to Plymouth and Exeter and Torbay, who all have brilliant cultural strategies. Torbay was a particularly interesting case study, and Hannah Harris at Plymouth Culture was incredibly helpful. And what the way they did theirs, rather than just throw a huge amount of money at one big company, they broke it down so that they could work in a really nuanced way with audience agency or arts development company. And so we've written the tender so that it could go to the big players who write the big strategies for Bristol, Plymouth, because there's about 4 or 5 that you know do the circuit. But equally, it could be one consultant, one individual who then uses the funding to bring in specific area of expertise and what East Devon needs. So it's and what's quite good as well is that we've built in slow processes, because you can't map, it's going to take time, isn't it, to go around and talk to everybody and to understand how East Devon operates. So we've built in longer timescales as well for that, and we've also built in some design aspects to it as well, so some branding. But it's worth looking at, as I said, Torbay and Plymouth's cultural strategy to get a sense of what we want, what we're trying to achieve. And then hopefully definitely by February, we'll know which consultant we're working with, and they'll come to an ACED meeting and meet you all.
And was that...
So I didn't catch that.
May I say something? Wendy's disappeared.
Got through.
You were talking about, oh.
Sorry.
Oh, well, could I just say, we were talking about Plymouth, and obviously Devon and Cornwall equity, Plymouth is in the centre, and they are working very hard at the moment to get a small film studio there. There's a lot of talk, whether it's going to be one that is based on, there are some BBC people or ex-BBC people and ex-Sky people who want to get together and have that sort of studio, but we're pushing more for something that is available for film companies to do all the, not just for filming, but all the processing that happens afterwards. And that looks as though it's going to go ahead in one form or the other.
I've heard about this film studio as well. It's exciting.
Well, it is. It wasn't quite what I had in mind. I'd always thought that somewhere at West Point was perfect. For obvious reasons, an airport nearby, train, motorways, but the feeling is that Bristol has the bottle bank, which is a fantastic place for all of these films and so on. So they feel that maybe one that's down towards halfway between Devon and Cornwall and Plymouth is a better place. But that doesn't mean that Exeter's not being thought of, or anywhere near Exeter.
Super. So the suggestion is that we have the next forum in person, but we would hope, I imagine, Fiona, that we would do a hybrid forum so that people could dial in if they were unable to attend or shielding.
Yes, we'll think of some way of recording it so that those who can't attend, but I think there's been so much feedback that everybody's desperate to have a networking event. It'd be great to do that in person. Yeah.
I have to say, it just makes such a difference, doesn't it, meeting people in person. I saw colleagues for the first time in 2 years in the council offices yesterday, and just in 5 seconds of a conversation, you've cleared up so much. So we were thinking that it would be a breakfast forum starting at 9:30, and there would be an opportunity to see our new film work by Mikhail Karakis that will be on in the gallery at that time. But as I said, it's your forum or your network, so any suggestions on how we do it, or if we do it differently, just let us know. I think on that note, we've come to a natural conclusion.
To our bit.
Sorry. What date were you thinking of, Ruth? Sorry, I missed it. My internet keeps dropping out all the time.
Oh, no, not at all. The 7th of February.
Okay, great.
Which is a Monday, because that's when the gallery's closed. So we'll have the whole gallery to ourselves.
It would be so good to meet people and talk to people in person. I just Zoom thing's so terrifying.
I know.
To be able to talk to humans and not feel I'm stuck in that little box. No, brilliant. Thank you very much, Ruth.
Our pleasure. Thanks, THG team. Lovely to see everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.